So Google Sites is a cool little platform. Hello, Elaine. And there are actually, there's like an old Google Sites and a new Google Sites. So I do want to kind of explain the difference because the old one is still accessible, but I wouldn't recommend using it because eventually they're going to make it so you can't use it anymore. So I'm going to pull up my my screen again. Let me find the right window. Here we are. So if you go into Google Drive, excuse me again. So there are two ways to do it. If you go to the little dots right there, it says Google Apps. There is a link there that does say Sites, but it brings you to the old Google Sites. And the reason why that's important to know is when you go to make your Google site, you're going to be using the new one, and it actually won't show up here. You'll have to continue through and click where it says new Google Sites right here. But what I'm actually going to recommend that you do instead of that, because Google Sites is now, like in the new version, they've actually made it part of Google Drive. So in Google Drive, if you press where it says new, and then under, you got Docs, Sheets, Slides. If you go to More, about midway down that list is to make a new Google site. So when you go to Google Drive, you'll actually find your Google site in here. It works the same as any other like document or spreadsheet or slideshow, whatever you're making. It'll show up in the folder that you created. And so like I have a Google Drive folder just for website. So if I double click, you'll see that that's where my website is. And if I go to new site, it will save in here. So just if you're as organizationally obsessed as I am about having things in the right place, that might be an important detail.
So I had already started one,
Yes.
and I just went to Google Sites and I did the new one. But I've been having to go into where it says new sites to find it. Is this automatically saving in Drive if I go into Drive that way, or?
Yeah, so if you created, like if you went through the new Google Sites.
Yep, I did that.
And you just created a new one here, then it will it'll show up in like the root level of your Google Drive. So when you go to your Google Drive, right, on your like base level My Drive, that's where it's going to appear. And you can move it wherever you want from there.
Okay.
But you know, either way you'll get there. For me, I prefer to do it through Google Drive. And then I also, if I open a new tab, I also bookmarked the actual edit page. Just so it's that much easier for me to get to it too. So, but if you would like, go ahead and create a new Google site, or like Laura, in your case, if you just want to pull up what you have.
Okay.
And we'll get started there. So you'll be familiar with some of the stuff that I'm going to go through because I'm going to kind of start right from the beginning. So when you start a new page, you'll get something very generic like this. And kind of the first thing that I would do is right in this top corner where it says enter site name, I would just give it a name. So you know, Mrs. Groover's class website, or Mrs. Libby's class website, or Mrs. Gibbs, or whatever. You know, but give it a name. I'm just going to call this Google Sites training, just because I'm not going to keep this around after. And then you'll see that at the top it changes the name of it too. This is also the name that in the tab bar where your browser tabs are, that's what's going to appear in the text there, what you type in. So when somebody goes to your website, that's what'll show up at the top. So there is some significance to that. Hi, Tammy.
Hi.
Good to see you. We got quite a crowd here. I've been paying attention to everyone coming in, so So welcome to everyone that's in here. It's good to see you all, and hope that you're well and safe and healthy. So that's the first part. The next thing, your page title. These two things, that title and that title, aren't connected, so you might give it a name here as well. Google Sites Training. These little circles here mean that you can resize this. So I might extend it out just so I can get the text on one line. But you can make it as big or as small as you want. So there's that part. The other thing when you're making a site, and this applies for each page on a website that you make, is you have, this is what's called your header, this area right here. And you can change what kind of header type you have. So if I go and click header type here, the default is banner, which means that you get your title and you get kind of a background to go with it. If you go to title only, then it removes that and just gives you just this white background with the simple text. So there's very kind of no frills. Again, that's your standard banner. You can also go large banner, which takes up a larger amount of space, or cover, which kind of like takes up the entire size of your screen so that you don't see anything else until you scroll under. I tend to either just go with banner or title only. But you know, whatever you prefer, just because really with the banners in particular, the only thing that goes in there is the title and then kind of the background of your choosing, which that happens where it says change image. So if you click on change image, you can upload a picture if you want. And one of the things I actually really like about the new Google Sites is if you upload a picture and it kind of makes it hard to read the text in here, it'll kind of do some editing to your picture to kind of darken it a little bit so that you can see the text a little better. Or if it's black text and you upload a picture, it'll change it to white text, something that's easier to see. You can also go select image because they have a whole library of templates. You've got some very generic stock photos. You've got some different patterns. You can do a Google search for a picture if you want. If you have pictures in Google Photos, you can pull those up. If you have something in Google Drive, so you have quite a few options for what you want to do with this background picture. I'm going to pick the one with the computer because, of course. And then I'll just hit select. And you can see it'll say adjusting for readability. So it is kind of adjusting what that picture looks like so that your text is as easy to read as possible. And actually, you can turn that off. So if I turn that off, you'll see that it brightens up a little bit and it's a little bit harder to see that text. So I'll just leave that on right there. So any questions so far? I think it's probably a good place to kind of take a quick pause.
I have a question about changing the color of the text. When I was in there, I could only see that it would be black or white, and I didn't know there was a colored option.
Yeah. The one thing that with the new Google Sites that I'm not a fan of is just more of the fact that you're kind of limited in some of the choices you can make, particularly around fonts. But actually, the next thing I was going to show you is themes. So on the right side of your screen, you've got 3 tabs here. You've got Insert, you've got Pages, and you've got Themes. I'm actually going to go through those in reverse order. So if we start with Themes, you get generally a couple of different, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 6 different themes that you could choose from. And you'll see if you kind of click through them. So the simple is your default, but there's Aristotle, and you can see that it changes a little bit of the styling in the fonts. Diplomat, Vision, Level, and Impression. So you can kind of thumb through those as you want. In addition to that, particularly if you're using like the default background or something, You do have some color choices that you can use, but it generally does not apply to the fonts. So like in this case, under Aristotle, like it changes the line. Or under simple, like if I just use the default background, you can change the color of it, that kind of stuff. So you are a little bit limited in what you can do. There's also font style. And usually like it has a default font and you can go with a light, a classic, or a heavy. Again, some of these end up being a little different. Like under Aristotle, you've got modern, classic, and bold. You get some different things. Generally, the reason why you kind of have the lack of options here is it has as much to do with the fact that it's trying to create the maximum amount of optimization for whatever device someone's going to see a website on. So really the way that you do that is just by simplifying as much of the options. I'll actually show you an option later where you can see how to preview what your website looks like if you're on a laptop or a tablet or even a smartphone. You can see how the picture kind of changes based on that. So you can kind of look and see if things are the way you want them to be, or if you need to move stuff around, that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, you don't have a ton of customization in here. You have more of it in the older version, but you also need to know a little bit of HTML to be able to do most of it. So, so there is that. So once you have a theme that you want, I'm going to go to pages now, and this is just more as you expand your website, you're probably not going to want to have everything that you have on your website on a single page. So this is actually where you would go to add subpages. I'm going to pull up my website edit page just so you can kind of see kind of more of what a hierarchy looks like. So I have kind of 4 main subpages, one for students, one for staff, one for parents, and then one for support my classroom. And then if I click these triangles, you'll see that I have subpages to that. So classes. So like on my student page, I have links for each grade that I teach. So the classes, they each know that they have a button that they're supposed to click when they come to my class, and then the stuff that they're supposed to be working on is there. So, and then I have those pages underneath the classes, and you can see the whole list right there. So, so as you build your website out, you'll see more of these things. So if I go and make back on this basic one, I can hit the plus and create a new page and call it, I'll call it stuff, just because I have nothing better to call it. And then you'll see that this becomes a subpage to what is your home page. And then you can do a subpage under that. So if I go here and then I click on the 3 dots and then go add subpage, I can put more stuff. And you'll see that collapsible list. You can go I think it's like 4 or 5 levels. You probably won't necessarily need to do something like that, but it is something I guess worth noting. Another thing about this too is whenever you create a new page, you can actually add a new link too. So if you wanted to say, if you wanted to create a link to IXL, and just go IXL.com, you could do that as well. And what happens with this here is these actually show up in this little horizontal navigation bar at the top. So you see that I have my stuff page. There is a link down to more stuff when you put your cursor on stuff. And then that link to IXL I just made is right there, which I'm going to just delete that because I don't really need that. One more thing too, you may not necessarily want all of your pages to show up on this list. So if I go to stuff and I click on those 3 dots again, this option here that says hide from navigation, you'll see that the icon changes a little bit. You'll see it has like a slash through that page. You might have noticed that on mine when I went to that tab. And you'll see that it disappears from this top. So if you want to kind of over time sort of have some things that people can see sometimes and other times not, that is an option you can use. They can still get to those pages if they have the exact URL. It doesn't kind of lock them out of it. It just means that it's not part of your navigation. So I wouldn't worry too much about the pages part if you're just getting started, until you kind of have more of a chance to sort of plan out what you want your website to be, and what you want your homepage to be. But obviously you want to start with your homepage first and then think about what else is gonna go there. So, but I did want to show that to you all. So any questions on that part?
No, the site that I shared with you, I think I just posted everything on that homepage. I think that's what I just did.
Yep. Yeah, and it all. I mean, some of it depends too on how much you have. Obviously, if you're going to be posting a lot, and it's going to be a resource that's going to be accessed really frequently, then you might want to divide stuff out. I know for me in particular, my biggest thing is I don't want the stuff I link for students to be in the same place of the stuff that I link for staff.
Yeah,
that's why I'd want to have a student link and a staff link.
Yeah.
And even a parent link, which I haven't really hashed out that much. I need to do some more work on that. But that's kind of that would be a case where you'd want to have some of those sub pages. But obviously, if you're not having to worry about stuff like that as much, then certainly you can put as much on that homepage as possible. Obviously, the more stuff you put on a single page, the more that your users, whoever's at your website, the more that their device has to load. And obviously, for a mobile device, that may take longer sometimes than others. So sometimes it's good to kind of have less, just from a performance standpoint of being able to load quicker, not needing as much data, that kind of stuff. But obviously, if you're not posting a tremendous amount of stuff, it's not that much of a concern.
Okay.
So on my homepage, I wanted to add like a welcome video to start, and then I would just change it to a video that I would just tell kids and parents how to navigate. So I have to create a layout below it to add it.
Sure.
Because I accidentally made it its own section, like its own page, and I don't want that. I want it to be right when they pick up, open the site, they can see that.
Okay, I got you. Can you share your screen?
I don't know how to do that.
Okay, so at the bottom of your chat, your screen, you should see a button that says present now. It'd be towards the bottom right. Do you see that?
I just see Jeff Sear is presenting.
Oh, okay. I have to stop presenting then in order for you to present. So why don't I do that right now? I'm going to hit stop.
Okay.
And then do you now see something that says present now?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and click on that. And then I think probably just say choose a window and then pick the window that would have your website tab on it so I can see it. And so we can all see it too. It might be a good kind of example for everyone to see as we're learning how to do this.
I'm still... Okay, the thing that said choose a window, share an application window, but it's just showing you.
It's just showing me?
Yeah, and I have other things open.
Okay. So you don't have your website tab open right now?
I do. It's just not. Okay.
Okay.
A window. Your entire screen, a window.
Yes. Yeah.
And the only window that pops up is you.
Okay. So
the
that's
one we're in right now.
Yeah. So that's because you're seeing me talk.
Yeah.
And then but your website is open in a different tab in the same window.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what it is. So
It's
go
on
ahead.
it's on a different thing. It's not in this window.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to that then.
Okay.
And we'll come back to that later, just to so we can figure out what's going on with that. So I am gonna pop mine back on.
Okay.
Do
I have? Okay.
Yeah. So it'll take a second for everyone to see it, but it should be on there now. So under so actually, Laura, that was a good question too, because that was getting to my next part, which is the insert tab. So there's a whole list of different things that you can insert into a Google site. Your main 4 up here, your text boxes, pictures, embedding. I'm not sure you have to do a ton of embedding, and files from Google Drive. And then, excuse me, if you go below that, layouts, if you're going to be adding things in, you can kind of put a template layout, and it just makes a bunch of placeholders for things that you can fill out later. Like if I click on this one, you'll see that it gives me like 3 boxes, and I can add a series of things like a picture, upload something from Drive, a YouTube video, a calendar, stuff like that. But it's just kind of placeholders, and then you get some placeholder text boxes. So you don't have to do this, but if you kind of have a layout here that you're thinking you'd want to use, if you click on one, then it just kind of pops that into your Google site automatically. But you can also, if I just say click on text box, you'll see that a text box will appear here. So I can pick something in here. You've got, some irregular formatting, things like bold, italic, your alignment. You can make numbered lists or bulleted lists. You can make a link out of something. So if I wanted to put a link for IXL here, I could highlight that text, go insert link, and then when the user goes and clicks on this, then it will bring them to the IXL website. So you also have that as well. This part here, the style of your text is a little interesting because, again, you don't have a lot of customization in your fonts and your font sizes, but you can kind of manipulate some of that through deciding what kind of text you want. If you want a title text or a heading text, subheading, and then also small, which is kind of like if you were making a caption for something. But generally, most of what you're going to be doing is in normal text. So that's a text box right there. Also, again, you can upload an image. You can do a Google image search for IXL. That's not what I was looking for. How about IXL math? Something there. Nope. Let's see. I was looking for Tinkercad earlier. So if I wanted to put a picture of this, just click on it, insert, and then now there's a picture there. You can make links out of pictures as well. Insert link. You can do some resizing if you want. We're going to talk about resizing a little bit later too, because sometimes it gets a little funky. But you can kind of do some stuff with that. Also below, you have some other options. Collapsible text, I haven't really played around with that much. Table of contents either. Image carousel. You can make buttons. Divider is just will give you like a line. So if you want to kind of have a physical thing that represents dividing a section, you could use divider. YouTube video, you can embed a Google Calendar, a Google Map, everything from Drive, Docs, Slides, Sheets, Forms, and Charts, all that kind of stuff. I tend not to use this part very much because honestly, it's one of the easiest ways to do. I don't even use this that much because what happens too, if you're in your website, if you just double click in a space, you'll see that you get this little circle that pops up, and it's basically the same options that are right up here in the top right corner. So I tend not to go here this much because obviously my cursor is in this area more. So I just will kind of double click where I want something to go. And then I can upload a picture, select an image, bring something from Drive, embed again if I really needed to, or text. And then you get that same thing. Why don't we pause here for a second? Any questions?
All good.
All good. All right. So again, with resizing, it is a little weird because if I go to resize something, let's say if I want to go put a picture. So let me go get that Tinkercad picture again here. So right there. So if I wanted to put a text box underneath it, the one limitation is that it kind of lines things up in a vertical way. So the text box that I put underneath this is limited to being the same size or the same width as the picture that I put. So if I'll just put Tinkercad here for your text, and you'll see again, the text box is the same as the picture. And you'll see even when I go to click on it, it actually highlights everything at once, and then I have to click again just to select the picture. But if I resize, and you'll see those lines too are kind of guide, so it will snap to one of those lines. So I can't kind of have it sized in between these two lines here. It will snap it to one or the other. And you'll notice that the text box resizes with it. And again, it does this in particular because of mobile optimization. So, for what appears on a phone. So if I have two pictures that show up, I just want to call it good. Obviously, on a larger screen like a laptop or a tablet, you can see those side by side. But on a mobile device, the screen is too small to be able to see those at once. So it lines these things up together because it's going to line them up vertically so that you're going to see this, and then this actually will go below it. So that's why you kind of get that funky editing, that funky formatting a little bit. It can be a little bit weird. Which actually, this is a good part to tell you as well, that if you look towards the top, there's a little picture. It kind of looks like a laptop and a smartphone with it. So that's your preview. And that's where you can go to see, this is what my website's going to look like on a laptop screen or a desktop screen, basically a larger screen. And then if I go down here, I have my options, then I can see this is what it's going to look like on a tablet. So it's a little bit more compressed, but you can still see that everything fits on one row. And then there's the phone option, and you'll see how it reorganized everything so that this appears on top and that appears on bottom instead of appearing side by side. I just wanted to kind of show you that if you're looking to kind of put your text box and have it be the whole width, that's when you then kind of organize things into different sections. So if you can kind of see right here that this is all one section, so it does organize things into sections. So if I needed a text box to be the full width, what I would do in that case is I would pick this up, and you see those little dots right there. Anytime you see that's where you click and drag to move it. So I'm going to click, and then you'll see right now that it's snapped to this element, but I can bring it down here, and now I've just made it its own section where I can resize that box to take up the whole width. In addition to having different sections, you can duplicate a section. So like if you're wanting to format something that's kind of like 2 columns the way that this is, then you can kind of duplicate it and just make it easy so that then you just kind of replace what you have with your other stuff you want to do, and you don't have to do as much formatting. You can delete an entire section at once. You just hit delete. And then you can add a background to your different sections. So like on my website, if you notice that I have kind of different backgrounds to indicate different sections of things that I have, that's what I do, is I just set a background, which you've got a couple of generic ones. Obviously that doesn't work out too well. And then you can choose those 3, or again, you can choose your own image if you want. You can put your own picture in there, or select image, and it gives you that same template library that we had with our header. So I could put this to, sure, let's do this one. And it'll do that adjusting for readability again. So if you have text, it will change the formatting of the picture. It might darken a little bit. It might change your text to white, that kind of stuff. So that's probably about all I can show you as far as formatting. Before really at this point, the next best thing to do is just to kind of dive in and see what you want to make of your website, and adjust as you go along. So again, I'll take a break here if anyone has any questions. Yes, Jen.
Oh, my question is there a way to take video and upload video, like of a daily read aloud or something like that? Or is that something I would have to do separately, save it as a separate file,
Yeah,
and upload it?
right. So in that case, you would need a place to host the video, which is going to be either Google Drive or YouTube.
Okay.
And then you would add that video into your website. So I'll actually show you an example, because like one of my video tutorials from earlier in the year. So if I wanted to put that on this screen right here, I would just go, I'll double click, and I'll say from Drive, because I put all of my videos are in Google Drive. If you may want to use YouTube, there really isn't a whole lot of difference, other than YouTube being a lot more public in the accessibility of the video. But if I say from Drive, and this little section opens up here, and you'll see that this is my folder structure, my folder hierarchy from Google Drive. I'm going to change my list because I prefer to see it. And let's go, I think it's under website and how-to videos, Chromebook basics. Okay, so these are the videos I made like way at the beginning of the year. And so I would just click on it, and then it just adds it right in.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so when the website goes live and you put those videos there, then when the kids go, they'll be able to see it. Now, the one thing with that, especially if you're using Google Drive, is you have to make sure that your video is set to be shared. Because if it's set so that only you can see it, you're going to be able to see the video because you're logged into Google and it knows you have that permission. But anybody else that goes on, basically they're going to see, it's going to be an empty space here. So that's one thing where you want to make sure that your video, you go to your sharing settings and you make sure that it says anyone, at least anyone with the link can view. Okay. So if it's not shared like that, like I'll save it this way so you'll see what it looks like if it's not shared. So when you get to this screen here, you're going to go to advanced. And then right now it says private. So that means that only me and anyone that I've explicitly shared it with can access it. But I can go change right here, and I can set it to either anyone with the link or public on the web. Either one is fine. The difference is if you set it to public on the web, then Google will index the video so that it could potentially be found by doing a Google search.
Okay.
anyone with the link means that it doesn't index it, so you can't find it via a Google search. You actually have to go someplace where that video is, or they have the actual link to it. But either one of these is fine. It totally matters which one you choose is basically how comfortable you are with what you're putting out there as far as people being able to see it. But either one is fine. And then hit save. So as long as you see this, then if somebody goes to your website, they're going to be able to find that video. It's going to show up. If it says private, then they're not going to be able to see it. I have a folder just for my website, in part because I make that whole folder so that anybody can see it. Because anytime you put something into a shared folder, then that file also becomes shared. So that I basically just have a folder where that stuff is all shared, so I can put stuff in it and not have to worry about changing the settings and whether I forgot something.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's why I do it this way. And also, anytime you see kind of that little person icon in a folder or the little people icon here, that's letting you know that that file is being shared. If you don't see either of those, then that file is not shared and only you can see it.
Thank you.
Yep. But yeah, in terms of a video, like you're going to host your video on one platform, either Google Drive or YouTube, and then you'll add it to your website after.
And what we're doing right now is Google Hangouts. Is that right? Like this live video?
Yeah, Google Meet. It used to be called Hangouts, but now I guess it's called Meet. So, okay. But yes, which is another potential communication tool. I was doing some investigating around it this morning, and it is something that you can use if you send out, when you create a Google Meet session, it gives you a link, and you can send that link out to people. Obviously, in my earlier email, I sent out a link that I'm going to be using for my virtual office hours. Mm-hmm. But the one thing of that link is it actually does not require a sign-in. So if you were potentially interested in doing some sort of remote communication with your students, this is an option that you could use. So I did just want to kind of put that out there as well. So it is another tool, another option that you have.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. So when this is all set and ready to go,
yep.
How do I make it live? Who do I contact, or how do I do that? Because I would like people to find it on, like the district website under both of my schools.
Right. Yes. So that introduces the next step. So even once your website is live, when you go to make changes, it will save them on your end automatically, just like if you were doing a Google Doc, it saves automatically.
Mm-hmm.
But people are not going to be able to see the changes you've made until you click the publish button. And if you haven't published it yet, then this website is not accessible by anybody else. So when you're ready to kind of make your website live, you're going to want to do the publish. Now, I was actually talking with Danny Gay and actually learned something completely new today when you go to publish. So when you're ready, you just click that big blue publish button, kind of where the share button is when you're in Google Docs.
Yeah.
And then it says publish your site. So the web address, what do you want the URL to be? And again, this is basically becomes what you're sharing with people. So so if I say the web address is G Sites Training, then now your link is right here below. It adds it underneath. So sites.google.com/ms8052.org/gsitestraining. That check mark means that specific URL is available. Obviously, if I go to type, this is the one for my website, you'll see, hey, that's a great address, but it's already taken because I'm using it. But chances are, because we're just limited to anything within MSAD 52, like whatever you type is not going to get used. The other thing that's really important about this, and this is the part that I had no idea existed until today, the part down here that says who can view my site. The default is anyone at rsu52.us. So if you hit publish with that setting, what that means is I'll be able to see your website because I have that MS8052 login. So I'm logged into Google, it sees I'm part of that domain, I can access it. But it won't be accessible publicly. So if you publish with this setting as it is, your parents won't be able to see it. Unless you have a parent that's an employee of the district, basically. So you want to make sure you hit this manage button so that you get this right here. And this second setting is what you want to look at. Published, anyone at rsu52.us can find and view. You're going to want to hit change, and you're going to say anyone can find and view.
Awesome.
So that's
what I need.
That's what makes it public on the internet, so then your parents will be able to see it.
Cool.
If somehow you forget to do this, which, again, because I just discovered this existed this morning, so I go and publish it right now, right? If that happens, in order to change it, you'll go and you'll see you have this drop down that you didn't have before.
Right.
I'm going to click this, and I'm going to unpublish. And yes, it's telling me it won't be live, whatever. Got it. And then I'm going to publish it again, but this time I'm going to change that setting so that anybody can find and view. So Laura, that's the first part of the first part of your question.
Okay.
The next
Which
part
is already very helpful because I need to. I've already published it, and I don't know what the name was, so I need to go and unpublish it and figure all that out.
Right. Yep. Which is fine because again, like there's no situation where there's like no coming back from something. Like you just have to unpublish it and then republish it, and you're fine. So then the next part is how do people find out about it? And that's where you kind of share out what you have. So once you publish, you get this little handy dandy link, says copy publish site link right up here next to your preview. And then this is the URL. So in terms of getting the word out, this is where you copy that, paste it out into an email to your building principals or whoever has access to your school's social media presences. You can publish it on your, paste it on your social media presences, whatever. And that's kind of how we're going to get the word out. So that's actually something I'm working on right now. I'm working on making a subpage on my website for student activities, technology-based activities while they're at home. And once that's finished, I'm going to copy that link and I'm going to send it to Ryan and I'm going to send it to Danielle and, basically ask if they can help, send the word out so that parents are aware of it and that kind of stuff. So once you kind of do the part on your end, then you send that link out by email to your people, your building people who have access to those larger contact lists and social media, and then hope that they take care of it from there in a swift manner, which it seems like they've been really responsive to emails that I've sent them, so it shouldn't take that long.
So
I got a quick question.
Sure.
Sorry. So I just got on to my publish, but I went to manage it and it has who can access it. Should I be changing something?
So that's a good question. So in terms of like, if you go to, is this the screen you're on, the one that I'm sharing?
All right. Yeah, now I am. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this first one is about who has access to edit your website.
Yeah.
So let's say if you wanted to, if you wanted to make a single physical education website that you and the other, elementary PE teachers in the district wanted to do together, this is where you would go. Actually, sorry, you would invite them in here to to do that. So that's where they would be able to also come in here and make changes. The draft, I don't think you have to worry too much of that. Actually, I have to hit publish first. Let's hit publish first, and then publish settings. Oh no, it only shows up when you unpublish. Okay. I wouldn't worry too much about the draft. The draft settings show up because you're not published yet. And so if you wanted to make it so that certain people could see, or you want to provide a certain level of access to people to be like, hey, before I publish this, you just want to give this a look over and see if it's good. But once you hit publish, that option goes away because now it's public anyway.
All right. So if us as like specials wanted to do all our own thing, is it possible for us to have our own place to find that, like on like the Leeds Central School website?
So as far as the school websites, particularly because they're now managed differently, that they've used a different service, that would be a question I would send to Jason, because I have no clue how or who manages these, other than I know that Jason does.
Honestly, when I can't find something for my son at the high school, I always go on there and find the link to it. So that's why I was thinking, parents might be looking that way too, and that might be another way to make it available.
Right. Yep. And I think that because I don't see a specific place where like there's a listing of what the of staff web pages. I think there might have used to have been that, but I don't see it on here now.
Okay.
That again, I think would end up being a discussion that would have to be had with Jason as far as adding that into this website. Beyond that, as far as a central place, I mean, we could even, if we wanted to do a specials Google site, then we could basically make a new Google site that links to all of our Google sites, and that would work too. But I see what you're saying about it probably would be easier to do it from here. But at least as of right now, I'm not seeing that they've kind of added a place for sharing teacher websites from this version of the website. So that might be something that we'd have to push with Jason to maybe add that functionality in.
I guess we'll figure out too, like where would be the best place or the easiest place so they're not all searching and.
Right. Yeah. I think at this point, what we have in our control is email and social media. And so we'll start with that. And then beyond that, if we get to a point where then we say, hey, we really need a place to access these pages off of our school and district websites, then maybe that can happen down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right. So if anything pops up between now and tomorrow, as I did send in an email this morning that I am going to be offering virtual office hours at 9 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon on weekdays. So if you have a question about something you're working on, definitely feel free to pop in during those times, and I'll be happy to see what you're working on and help as much as I can. But at this point, I think this is a good place to kind of leave off for now, because at this point, it really is up to you to tinker around and see what you want to make your website, and then see if any questions pop up from there. So thank you all for attending. And again, I'll be accessible by email, can answer questions that way and through the office hours, and hope you all stay safe and healthy, and you know, spending you know, lots of quality time with your families and making the most out of a really weird situation. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you all for
Yeah,
coming.
thank you.
And yeah, talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye. So I gotta hit stop recording first. There we go.